Welcome to the National AA Technology Workshop 2019, held in Bowling Green, Kentucky, on today's Saturday at 11 a.m. And the topic of this meeting, I'm so excited about, is cultural effects of technology on AA. Let's see, what else am I supposed to read to you guys? Seriously, you can tell I'm getting... Okay. All right. Well, good. So my name is Lois, and I'm an alcoholic. Let's start with a moment of silence to be used as you wish. All right. So I'm excited to be up here chairing this meeting, and also really excited that I get to introduce Brian P. to you all. Brian was a member of the program committee, and I actually met Brian at last year's NAATW. Was it last year? Last year's NAATW. And I have to tell you, like, if you are seeing on the schedule, there's going to be a sharing session today at 3:15. The way I knew I wanted to know Brian was because he would get up at the mic and share. And so at some point I started chasing after him. I'm like, hey, let's talk more about that. And that's how I met him, and we formed a friendship. We're actually Facebook friends now, he and his wife. When I got the task of doing the program committee, I reached out to Brian and asked if he would help. And as we started working on the program committee, he would have all these great ideas for topics, right? And this was one of them, but I don't think he intended to be the presenter. And so he did take a little bit of nudging to be the presenter on that. But I'm grateful that he said yes, and I'm excited to hear it. So with that, I will give you Brian P.
All right. Thank you so much, Lois. Okay. Yeah. And thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here and to be speaking with you guys. I've been taught to say excited instead of nervous. But yeah, thank you to my fellow program committee members. I barely feel like I could take credit for being on the program committee because the rest of you guys did so much more. But it's been great to be involved. And I also want to thank the NAATW committee and the host committee. And I really want to thank my partner, Zoraida. Without your support, it just means so much to me. And I love you so much. And I want to thank all of you for being fellow technologists, because I've been having such a great time being here with you, and also as AA members, because AA saved my life. Yeah, so I'll let you know a little bit about me. I am 8 years sober. God willing, next month I'll be 9. And my technological background, I have a bachelor's degree in computer science and electrical engineering. Sorry, still very excited. Try to loosen up here a little bit. But yeah, so, and, at the same time I was earning my degree, I was kind of earning my seat here in the rooms. And so, sorry. Yeah, so, I was kind of like heading downhill, and, kind of the same way you see somebody when they're about to fall off a skateboard or a bike and you start doing the wobbles. I was kind of doing the wobbles for a while, and I somehow wobbled my way through a degree and getting my first job as a software engineer. And that lasted 5 years before I had to quit because it was going to explode. And, after that, it was 7 years of unemployment. And just going on a real slide into shame and isolation and all that, doing what we do. And then, the miracle of this happened. And, it started with the 5150 and being in a mental institution and going through treatment and finding myself in these rooms. And then, I'm telling you all that because for me, just being employable and employed again was a big deal. And I had not worked in this field up until this year. So last year when I came to the NAATW, I was nothing more than a technology enthusiast that had been kind of years out of this. but I didn't know that waiting for me was, my first job back into the field. And I want to thank you guys for that, because I think that being here really inspired me and gave me some confidence again and made me feel like I belonged, and gave me some confidence to go into my interviews that were just waiting for me, and I didn't know just a couple months later, and then finally get a job back in the field again. So I wanted to tell you all that because, I consider myself barely a technologist now, I just started again. I'm working for the city of LA on some very old web applications. I've just been refactoring code in Cold Fusion, but it's been like a wonderful thing. But really, so for me to come and speak on this, I think Lois gave you a little background about how I got asked to speak. I'm not here because I, have something to say about this in any, form of like authority or knowledge. But it was, I suggested this topic because I thought that we should talk about this. So there might be a lot of you that know more about what I'm presenting today. What I'm presenting comes from like 2 months of kind of cramming in my free time, trying to read up on things. But when Lois asked me, the idea of me coming here and telling you my thoughts and opinions and what I know about this was horrifying to me. And at some point I realized, if I, change it and more like leading a conversation that we all have so that you guys can give your input and we can all just talk about this, then it's something that I could do. So I invite you guys all to participate. And, if there's things that I'm missing or things that I get wrong, don't hesitate to come to the mic. And I'm going to try to leave some space in the middle of the presentation for that. But depending on how I'm doing on time, at least there'll be time at the end to, make your contributions too. So the topic is cultural effects of technology on AA. And what that means is cultural changes brought on by technological advances and how they might affect AA. So let's start by looking at culture. So I like this piece of art because when I looked up and I started reading about culture, it is so broad and it covers so much, and so much is written about culture. But in here you see art, which is part of culture, Eastern and Western culture. There's technology in the back with the train, politics, tradition, all this kind of stuff. Culture also covers religion, mythology, architecture, dance, music, youth culture, counterculture, art, custom, family life, birth and death, the cycle of life, sports, food, and I don't know how many of you saw the alcohol in there instantly. I suspect some of us are tuned into that. And it also covers everyday life and living. So I looked up some definitions of culture, and there is the classic definition, which is culture or civilization, taken in its wide ethnographic sense, is that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. This is a really old definition from 1871. There's a simpler definition I found. A general definition of culture that can be applied to all cultures is patterns of behavior that are common within a particular population of people. And then an even simpler one. Culture refers to how we live our daily lives. So, for the purpose of this conversation, I was just, really thinking about culture as what we do and how we do it. And a lot of it is things that we're not even aware of, but have become so ingrained and so natural to us that it takes a little stepping back to see. Cultural change. The last 2 decades have brought significant changes to our culture. There's the ubiquity of internet-enabled mobile devices. I'm sure all of you have one or two at least on you right now. Technological immersion deeper embeddedness in technological systems. One concept that I came across that was really interesting to me is how we are really embedded in technology now. To think about us as being separate from it is no longer a valid idea because, with big data and everything, everything is processed and presented to you in a curated manner, and we are just kind of, we're presented with choices, and we're presented with, decisions of whether to like or not like, or go here or not, and when we make an input, when we make a decision to go somewhere, everything is seen by technology now, and it just goes back into the pool of swirling data that's around, and somebody makes money, somebody, learns something about us or about society, and there's a lot of systems of control, systems of commoditizing our lives that weren't there before, and this is new. This is not what it used to be. So, and with all this, came an explosion of new ways of doing things. So that's changes in our culture, right? How we do things, what we do. Conducting business. There's different ways of doing purchasing things and getting things delivered to us. Or food, anything. Transactions, types of services. We have those electric scooters, going around big cities nowadays that people just pick up off the sidewalk and leave without even thinking about, what's happening to it afterwards. That's all new. Interacting with each other socially, it's opened up a whole, universe of ways that we can connect with each other now. We saw some of that in this morning's presentation. We heard about that in this room just a little while ago about chats. But there's also social media, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, all those things the kids are using. And sharing, discovering, and consuming information. So we're in an information-rich world nowadays, and I'm sure all of you know about this already. But I wanted to read a passage from a book that I came across that I really like that talks about this cultural change. And it really describes, the cultural divide that's happening between generations. And it starts, and it refers to a man named Walt. And Walt is 76 years old at the time of the writing of this book. And, he's from the silent generation, which is the generation before the baby boomers. It says, Walt doesn't text and doesn't have a profile on Facebook or elsewhere on social media. I offered to show him how the apps work, but he just wasn't interested. Walt is not alone in his views. A vast majority of people his age, the silent generation, don't own smartphones. The disconnected Walts of the world, compared with the hyper-connected millennials, are examples of the social fractures at hand between the digital haves and have-nots in society, fractures that are opening up along generational lines. This is not simply a matter of having or not having a device. Instead, this digital divide encapsulates an entire constellation of cultural capital and technological savvy that goes hand in hand with living immersed in a digital culture, resulting in major differences in their ways of relating to and experiencing the world. This fracture is more than simply differing use of electronics. It instead signals the emergence of separate cultures with very different behaviors, social rules, and value propositions. The effect of this will be tectonic, dwarfing that of the Industrial Revolution or the invention of the printing press. The resultant untethering from well-established cultural values and behaviors extends well beyond the digital realm. As a reaction to difficult economic circumstances and bolstered by these new social technologies, millennials are disconnecting from what has been termed by many the American dream, and they are doing so in droves. They are rewriting the rules of the social contract. This untethering has massive implications for the economic, social, and political future of our country. But these changes don't stop at the borders of the United States. What we're talking about here is unhooking from traditional social structures and ways of doing things at a global scale, facilitated by digital technologies, or what technologists call disaggregation. It signals the emergence of an untethered world. So, I think what happens with us, especially in AA, is, these technologies forming these new cultures doesn't mean that, the whole society moves to this new culture, right? I kind of see it more like, you know, a group of volcanic islands, right? And a new technology catches fire and explodes, and all of a sudden there's a new land. And, you know, some of us might hop over to it, some of us may not, some might move there permanently, and some people might be born there and, you know, never been back where we are, right? And the Walts of the world, you know, silent generation of the people that don't adopt, you know, we don't just disappear, you know. And, you know, I'm someone that's kind of a little slow to get on social media and that kind of stuff. But, you know, it's when we're talking about cultural change and how it might affect AA, I'm not thinking that, I'm not speaking about this in a way where we're going to be, we need to change what's existing, you know, because there's a lot of us, you know, we like the way things are, and, you know, our groups can be fine. But when new groups pop up and they have new things, new ways of doing things, like people on this new island are doing things differently than the way that we would, maybe it's better for us to understand why and why the culture is different over there, and give them more flexibility and freedom to discover, you know, how they should do things that works for them. So the question I wanted to frame to us is, and this is in Mad Lib style, how is a technology changing the way that people, and then something that people do, and how might this affect AA? And it's not exactly Mad Libs, because, you know, in Mad Libs you kind of throw out random words. We don't want to ask, you know, how is a hairdryer changing the way that people fart, and, you know, how might this affect AA? But, you know, an example that one, you know, that I will start with soon is, you know, how is social media changing the way that people experience anonymity, and how might this affect AA? So why should we ask ourselves this question? The advent of new technologies might be creating significant culture gaps between AAs of today and AAs of the past. And that's, you know, kind of what I read. There might be things that we do in AA that do not make sense in the context of today's changed world. We might be keeping traditions and or resisting progress in ways that hinder our effectiveness in reaching the suffering alcoholics of today. And that's the big one. So even if these things turn out not to be so, we would be better for having examined this and could feel more confident about the things we are doing and the ways we are doing them. So basically, you know, I'm proposing that it's a worthwhile exercise, whether we find out there's things to change or not. And then why should we ask ourselves this question, as in us in this room? So perhaps as AA members who are technologists, we are in a good position to better inform and lead our fellowship in matters of cultural change brought on by technology. So maybe we're in a better, you know, position to understand when conference agenda items come up, you know, regarding technology. You know, we instantly know what they're talking about, what they're referring to, and we know what's going on in the technological world better than the average people in the membership. And so we need to take the lead when, you know, the fellowship is living life on life's terms. Or else, maybe as technologists, we are too close to the action to see the implications of what we are involved with. Maybe we need this exercise more than others to ground ourselves. So, you know, sometimes we are so passionate about technology, we're in our worlds about what we're building, we get really idealistic about things that we're doing, and you can see this image here. This is my copyright infringement for the presentation. So this is a scene from Jurassic Park where, you know, they were able to extract DNA and breed dinosaurs, and they're not seeing the dangers yet. And spoiler alert, things go things go a little south. So, you know, maybe we should do this to keep ourselves in check also. So, and then here's a quote from Bill W. That, you know, why I think it's our responsibility to ask ourselves this question. And this is Bill speaking to the General Service Conference in 1960, which I got out of the new book from GSO, actually, which is really great. It's called Our Great Responsibility. We live in an era of change. Our 12 steps probably won't change. The tradition's not at all likely. And he was talking about, you know, that period of time in 1960. But our manner of communication, our manner of organizing ourselves for function, for service, let us hope that this goes on changing for the better forever. There is a very natural resistance we have towards change. I think we ought to stay open-minded on this matter of change. We reference the past and its lessons for so long as those teachings work. When they don't, we readapt and we reshift. That has been our history. Okay. So, how shall we proceed? So let's explore this together. This is what I kind of talked about earlier. I really want all of us to be in this conversation. Let's allow inconsistencies and contradictions to exist. The point of this isn't consensus. And let's give ourselves permission. Here's another quote from Bill. My feeling is that the more we insist on strict conformity with these steps and traditions, the more resistance against them we create. But if these steps and traditions do reflect accurately what our experience is, the alcoholic, no matter whether he be Swedish, Hindu, Chinese, or what, will eventually adopt the principles that produce the best results for him and his group. And if these are correctly stated, they will adopt these. And if any improvements are to come, well, who knows? We may get them from anyone. So, let's give ourselves permission to examine this, and, possibly changes can come from us. So the first thing, and I mentioned this earlier, social media and anonymity. How is social media changing the way that people think about anonymity, and how might this affect AA? And in this presentation, I'm just giving a few examples. I mean, I feel like this is a conversation that needs to be had with all kinds of technology that have the potential to change the way we do things. So here's some stats about social media. Everyone is doing it. 3.2 billion. There are 3.2 billion social media users worldwide, which represent 42% of the population. Generationally, in the U.S., 48.2 of baby boomers use social media, 77.5% of Generation Xers, 90.4% of millennials. Globally, we're spending an average of 2 hours and 22 minutes per day on social networks and messaging. So that's probably not a surprise to anybody. Newer generations have never lived without it. These are people that were born on that island of social media. 81% of children under age 2 already have some kind of digital profile. And of course, they're not signing up themselves. This is parents taking pictures of their kids and posting them on social media and creating profiles for them. The trend is increasing for a child's digital birth to coincide or even predate their real birth date. In a 2010 study, 1 in 4 babies had sonogram photos posted of themselves online before they were born. So, yeah. And so, this is really just to realize that there's, a really different culture nowadays of, kids are used to, as soon as they become aware, they already have a history of all their life being blasted out to strangers, all their parents' friends. They don't even know who they are. And so, that's not something that a lot of us grew up with. And privacy, what does that mean for their expectations of privacy, their experience of anonymity? When they come to us and we tell them about that, it might be their very first experience with trying to keep something private. So the 63rd General Service Conference affirmed that internet, social media, and all forms of public communications are implicit in Tradition 11. And, we all know Tradition 11, says that at the public level, we're anonymous at the level of press, radio, TV, and films. So the internet of today is not the same as press, radio, TV, and films of yesterday. And this is regardless of whether we decide, that we have decided that we should still be anonymous on it. But it's good for us to realize that, what we're talking about, it's not just a natural continuation of those other forms of communication. Press, radio, TV, and films, it was never used as a medium for regular people to connect with each other on a daily or hourly basis. In this respect, the internet is more like what the telephone was to past generations. So telling a teenager now to be anonymous on the internet could be like telling a teen in the 80s to be anonymous on the telephone. And of course, we're only talking about with respect to being an AA member. So we're not. It wouldn't be like telling them not to identify themselves at all when talking on the phone. But just to point out that it's unnatural to people nowadays. Anonymity is a bigger challenge and a bigger departure from the mainstream now more than ever before. So 5G networks and integration. How will 5G networks change the way that people integrate with technology, and how might this affect AA? So a little introduction to 5G. 5G is the newest generation of cellular network technology supplanting 4G LTE. 5G networks started rolling out in April 2019. That's, just a few months ago. 10 times faster theoretical speeds versus LTE. Latency is less than 1 millisecond, and I think, I read that what we mostly experience is around 50 to 70 milliseconds right now with 4G. And, for non-technical people, the latency is like, if we were talking about a faucet, turning the knob and water comes out right away is low latency. If you hear it rumble a little bit and then, something eventually comes out, that's like high latency. So it's like the response time of the internet. And the speed is like how much water, whether it's like a fireman's hose coming out or, a little drop. So 5G is going to make, basically compared to what we have right now, like a fireman's hose of data come at you instantly whenever you want it. There's support for 100 times more connected devices and 1,000 times more bandwidth per unit area. So right now, if you ever take your phone to a concert or sporting event, you get nothing because it's all the antennas are saturated. But this 5G is going to allow a lot more devices to be connected, and this has big implications for our devices. More than us, like that, more cars on the highway are going to be able to be connected. More, appliances, the whole Internet of Things. 90% power consumption reduction. You might notice that when you leave your navigation on, your phone's battery just drains. That's not going to happen as much, and that also opens up a lot of possibilities for devices to be talking to the internet at all times. Better connections and mobility. So there's beamforming and tracking, so it'll actually focus, beams to connect with devices. And better handoffs from system to system. So when you're driving down the highway and you got to go from one antenna to the other, all that works together to just make a more reliable connection. And together, all those things, will break through the current limitations and enable massive Internet of Things. That means, everything being able to be smart. Tactile internet. That's, responsive enough for us to be able to interact with things and have it give us tactile feedback in a way where we can kind of use our, motor instincts to interact. Augmented reality. That's like, as we go around the world and we see things, that our devices will be able to inform us of what we're looking at. Like, if I was wearing that, infamous Google Glass or something, and I look at Lois, I could see her profile or something like that at the same time. Or, we could, as you're driving around, it'll tell you which restaurants are open and, what you're in the mood for, things like that. And critical communications use cases. So autonomous and remote driving of vehicles. That includes drones, healthcare monitoring systems, industrial robotics, and drones. The end result of this is there'll be more data generated by and collected from our everyday activities. Things around us will be more intelligent, predicting our behaviors and reacting to and guiding our actions. We'll be even more deeply embedded in technology. And this is the question for us is, who will take interest in our patterns as recovered or active alcoholics? It was just mentioned yesterday about Google's Recovery Resource Hub, version 2.0. Version 1.0 that just came out last week. So, what will 2.0 be with the 5G networks? And it's just interesting, like, analyzing what we do and, it doesn't have to come from us. It can come from outside. Anybody who takes an interest in what alcoholics are doing, and that find ways to kind of, if they have an interest in commoditizing this, or controlling active alcoholics in some way or another, it's available. This is going to make it more available. And this kind of ties into artificial intelligence too. How is artificial intelligence changing the way that people interact with people, places, and things, and how might this affect AA? So, faster mobile connectivity is going to, really enable artificial intelligence to explode too. So AA is everywhere, and you're already using it. 4 billion devices carrying AI-powered voice assistants are in existence this year. We have AI reading our emails and telling us what we should see and what we shouldn't see. That's our spam filters. And now they're trying to even get more sophisticated. I don't know if you've experienced, on Outlook having a focused inbox, and computers are reading our communications and trying to help us. And there's predictive text now. I don't know if any of you use Gmail, but as you start typing, it kind of tries to finish your sentences for you. Like it's the love of your life. There's voice recognition, photo recognition, all kinds of recognition, right? I mean, patterns of, I had my GPS for a while, suggesting, are you trying to go to this location? And, every Wednesday, because I was going to a Wednesday meeting every week, Curated news feeds, social media, targeted ads. So AI is kind of, understand us better and kind of better present us with things. Anything suggested purchases, friends, articles, the next show you're going to watch, music. It's funny, I wonder if someday AI will be able to read our emails and come up with the 10th step list for us every day of people that we need. Behavior prediction and situational analysis. So, the same way, traffic is being analyzed for us all the time whenever we try to go somewhere. There's going to be new ways of navigating things. And AI is trending towards explosive growth. The software market, AI software market, is projected to grow from 1.4 billion to 59.8 billion between 2016 and 2025. 1 billion AI-enabled video cameras will monitor cities worldwide by next year. In the U.S., $10 billion in venture capital is being invested in AI. Chinese AI patents grew by 190% in 5 years. The UK government is financially supporting 1,000 AI PhDs. So there's so much potential in AI to give industries a competitive edge that just a lot is being invested. So implications of this: medical professionals, courts, law enforcement agencies, social services, businesses, entrepreneurs, scammers. Who will take interest in helping alcoholics in good faith? Who will commoditize and exploit the still suffering alcoholic, the alcoholic seeking help, the recovered alcoholic? And we've seen an explosion of treatment centers in LA, that are just, really see a lot of economic potential in helping alcoholics, and some are in good faith and some are not. What will be invested? What will be created? Our fellowship will need our vigilance to sort out who might be new friends of AA and who might do us harm. And, this is something that came up for me too in preparing for this presentation, is that, AA has always had friends in, the medical community, in the clergy, in, the courts. And I think AA needs friends in the technological realm to help us understand this stuff too. And, originally when I was suggesting this topic, I was thinking that it would be cool to have like a cultural anthropologist or a sociologist come and tell us about, how we're doing things differently. But we might need friends in those realms too. So digital media and learning. How is digital media changing the way that people learn, and how might this affect AA? Here's some YouTube statistics from 2015. It's a little old at this point, but I don't think these trends have, stopped. Searches related to how-to grew 70% year over year. 67% of millennials agree that they can find a YouTube video on anything they want to learn. By May 2015, 100 million hours of how-to content had been watched in North America in 2015, in that year. And of smartphone users, 91% turn to their devices for ideas while completing a task. And I know this from my own life, that when I'm trying to learn how to do something, like I built a gate for our backyard, and I needed to learn how to use power tools and whatever, the way I learned was, I didn't go to the library, and I didn't even ask a neighbor, that's something that we used to do. I went to YouTube, and I just binge watched and kept on watching the next suggested video and selected, and that's how we learn things. And I think that is that's something we should notice, because people might be entering a lot, how do I quit alcohol, and expecting to have answers on YouTube. And this graphic, the title of it, points out the thing at the bottom, which says that adults say it's a very important. YouTube says 1 in 5 YouTube users say it is very important for helping them understand things that are happening in this world. But what I want to point out is the top bar, where it says 51% of adults say YouTube is very important for figuring out how to do things they haven't done before. And another 35% say it's somewhat important. So most adults think that YouTube is really important for helping them learn stuff. So can we better utilize channels like YouTube for public information? Can we have video versions of the pamphlets that people can watch and just get detailed information about how AA works? So I know we're just getting started with it. So even the people at the General Service Office, I'm sure, are aware that there's so much more potential. But provide content for deep learning and deep exploration of Alcoholics Anonymous for anyone who wants to know. So why not put out there, everything anybody would want to know about AA that's already available, conference approved, that's in our literature, and just make video versions that people can consume by watching instead of reading. Just, nobody picks up pamphlets anymore. And then we could also use it to provide content for AA members. Like, we have those 12 concepts illustrated is so popular. Why not have the 12 concepts animated and have more things animated? Okay. And then there's other observed cultural changes. And they came out of this book I read. It's really good. It's called Left to Their Own Devices: How Digital Natives Are Reshaping the American Dream. And there's references on the slides, which I'll share on Slack and with Doug. Generation Z, this is the one, after millennials. They prefer mediated interactions over person-to-person interactions. So, there's a lot of studies and cases where, instead of going up to an available cashier, they'll go to the kiosk. And people, growing up now are so used to interacting to each other through a screen. So, this results in them being less sociable, and experience more social anxiety, have more difficulty empathizing. This is kind of a sad trait that there's been a lot of cases of people, when they witness somebody in need of help, even dying, that they pull out their cameras and film it and share it, and the thought never occurs to them to jump in and help. And so this is my proposition. Maybe they need more love. So this is the open question that, we can plug a lot of things in there and continue to ask. So this brings me to, something that I've arrived at in researching all this is the idea of timelessness. And the definition I found. Definition of timeless: not affected by the passage of time or changes in fashion. So if you think about a lot of the things that we do in AA, right, that we gather together, meet at a certain place in person, and, pull out chairs, make some coffee, drink coffee, chat. A lot of that stuff I think is very timeless. All our efforts to reach out, no matter how novel or technological, have the goal of bringing the still suffering alcoholic into our rooms so that they can talk in person to other alcoholics, hear experience, strength, and hope transmitted through oral tradition, so that they can belong to a group. As real and genuine human connection becomes harder and harder to find in larger society, what AA has to offer the suffering alcoholic could become increasingly important. And, one thing I realized, especially in watching this morning's presentation by people from China and, all over the world connecting and their stories about connecting through the internet, these rooms, they can be digital, it is timeless for us to meet up and, see eyeball to eyeball and everything, but what I realized is it's not so much the quality of the connection, right, the physical connection, but it's what we transmit through that connection. And love is the answer. So the most timeless of our assets is love. And that's what I'm talking about. We can transfer love through any kind of connection, and it's meaningful. There's stories about, POWs scribbling stuff on toilet paper and, how much that connection, saved their life, or tapping Morse code on a wall. It's really not about the technology. As what saves our lives is one alcoholic talking to another. And this is some, this is from the Bible. I'm not religious, but I looked for a definition of love, and dictionary definitions of love are really, really lousy. But so I chose to use this passage to describe love, which is one of the writer's favorites. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. So in all that we do, let love guide us, and things will be okay, if not great. And, I think that's, as we try to help our fellowship navigate through this changing world and, things that have changed already and things that we don't realize, as long as we stay focused on loving the still suffering alcoholic and loving each other, that's all we need to do. And that's it. Thank you. Okay. All right. Yeah, so if there's any questions.
Again, this is not a question, but I just wanted to say that what you presented on the 5G, I could really see how that's going to blossom the ASL user in AA, because as we saw earlier today, motion and audio, they've really worked on the audio, but the motion on these conferencing can be really hazardous, which we've learned in the ASL community. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Bob. My name is Bob,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I just want to say, for a guy that just set up this presentation in a couple of months, that was awesome. Thank you so much. You did an amazing job.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, my name is Krista. I'm an alcoholic. And what I was reminded of is, I know there's a gentleman in one of my local meetings that learned how to read by becoming a member of AA. And I have a sponsee who works in the prisons, and one of her sponsees in the jail refused to do her homework. And I asked her, well, did you ask her, does she know how to read and write? And it turned out she did not know how to read and write. And you talk about love and the digital divide. Could that be some sort of service that people who are digitally savvy could work with and connect with and teach those that aren't? Just like we teach people how to read and write with the literature. Maybe that could be something that we could design on a local group level to help, like the road show that New Jersey's doing, going out to the districts and teaching people how to use their SharePoint. A new form of washing ashtrays.
Thank you.
I'm Lois. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Lois.
Thank you, Brian. I knew it would be great, and even exceeded my expectations. So awesome. I was thinking yesterday when we were doing Birds of a Feather, I had so much in my mind and I couldn't remember what all I wanted to, like, what did I want to do? What did I want to do? I keep this future list of when I'm not so busy in AA, the cool things I want to do in AA. And so now you help remind me of what they are, right? So, I definitely want to make, how-to, YouTube videos. So you guys need to come see me. We're going to make some service stories. We're going to do that. I also am so down with the animated concepts. So whoever else wants to help me with animated concepts, please let me know. We'll be making that, at the end of this weekend. So just keep me in mind. Excellent idea. Thanks for everything.
Thank you, Lois.
My own question is, Doug Alcoholic. Technology being cameras, social media, posting things online, how has that changed the way we actually take pictures? I'm afraid to take a group picture at this conference for fear that people are going to be concerned of their anonymity, but we really would like to have that just for our archives and records and personal use. And that certainly has changed the way we do things. And if you have thoughts about it, talk to me later.
Okay, thank you. That's certainly true.
I'm Joel, alcoholic.
Hi, Joel.
Hey, so you brought up that recovery hub, so I went ahead and did a little bit of searching on Google, like the techie guy does. There's some pretty mind-boggling numbers on here, and I'm gonna send this out to Lois to distribute to people. But I mean, it's insane. This hub's got numbers that would just blow your mind as far as recovering addiction, and it's talking about people, like 10% of people that are out there suffering with addiction or alcoholism actually get help. And this has nothing to do with AA. This is just showing the blanket numbers that are out there. And something like 20 million people are seeking treatment out there and can't find help. Just when we're talking yesterday about people were asking me about, well, how do you get across to those people that don't want to use technology and want to fight it? And here's some of the the data. You're trying to reach 20 million people, and you're stopping that. And I'm not trying to put it on that person that doesn't want to adopt a phone, but that's some of this evidence that shows this is a good thing because it's not associating in any way to AA. There's a whole article here on it, just on the basic numbers. And some people are like, well, we don't want to bring up AA and Facebook. Well, that's great. These are numbers that have nothing to do with AA. They're just addiction numbers that are out there and show proof that social media and all this. Google's even giving us tools now to use to show the effectiveness of these types of efforts. And I don't know, that was kind of like a little bit of a tidbit. Just 2 seconds on Google and I found that hub. And it produced a lot of good information. So thank you, by the way.
Oh yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Hey, Chris, alcoholic, Atlanta. Fantastic job on the presentation. I have lots of thoughts, but we don't have a lot of time. So I just wanted to share one advance technology-wise that I experienced recently. So my wife is from Thailand. We go every other year. And there's a lot of people in Thailand that are illiterate. So they've actually recorded the Big Book on YouTube, audio. And then a lot of people, they live in small towns and they don't have access to, big cities or AA meetings, whatever. So they listen to the Big Book online on YouTube. Just wanted to share that.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
Hi, Roger, alcoholic. Thank you and that was just great. It was just fact. It's like, this is the world we live in. This is where we have to do the deal. How are we going to do that? And something that struck me over this weekend so far is behavior. Like, it's not technology, but our behavior has changed and is changing, as you mentioned, with Generation Z. Something that I've noticed in today's truly like heart-touching talk, like the three people from Sweden and China, and the meeting guide app, and sort of like what's running around in my head is we're really focused on getting people to meetings because we have to charge our batteries, but the reason we meet is so that newcomers can find us. so that they can get to the actual program of recovery in the 12 steps. And it was very interesting to me that one of the gentlemen talked about being in a city of 5 million people and finding a meeting online for himself, which is what I would do too with this technology. But our history shows that what we really ought to be doing is finding another alcoholic to work with. And something I heard yesterday in the break, like a break, was it might be more effective for all of us, every AA member, particularly like in this room and just every AA member, if we were to share Alcoholics Anonymous with a professional a month that we come in contact with physically, humanly, about Alcoholics Anonymous, and that might do a lot more than we can ever do online. And so that's a takeaway that I learned that I wanted to share.
Hi, Zoraida Alcoholic.
Hi, Zoraida.
Brian, you did an amazing job. Thank you so much. I'm in Area 5 in Los Angeles, and we have a really big population of just so many different types of cultures and ethnicities. And one of the things I found in our area is that some of the other cultures that are non-English speaking don't even have email. And so I really want to encourage all of us to think about, who might be left behind by these technological advances that we're having in AA, which I think are very important because there's a whole population of young people that we're not reaching currently through the ways that they respond. But one thing that really came up for me also is that last panel we had a web chair in one of the Hispanic districts. And he would have these little groups once a month. And he would invite anyone who didn't have an email to come. And he would teach them. He would spend about an hour every month or so. And he would teach them what an email is. And he would teach them how to open an email and how to set up a free email account and how to write emails to other people and how to get information about Alcoholics Anonymous from our general service area via email and how they can distribute that to, sometimes they're DCMs and they don't have email and how they can distribute this information to other members. And so they've been able to pass that along. We're in a new panel now and he's not the web chair anymore. So there's a vacancy there. But these are little things that we can do to help other people who are not so technologically savvy. Thank you.
Thank you. One more question.
My name is Bill. I'm an alcoholic.
Bill.
I've been here this whole time and listening to all the technology that we're all talking about, and it's all a lot of it's app-based and software-based. And one of the things that came to light, and you brought it up, is the sheer magnitude of data that's being generated on a minute-by-minute basis around the globe. And we don't think about that, I think, in this kind of technology that we're talking about, but we need to. And case in point, I think our AV guys will talk about storage that might have run out this morning or during the day. And we had a perfect example of all the technology that we have, but yet we had a video conference and the guy started breaking up and was really choppy. And I think one of the things we need to keep in the back of our mind or maybe look at as well as all this technology and apps and software is the hardware that's impacted by, we're telling people, use these apps, use all these things, but there are limits to the technology as far as hardware goes. And some of these people are going to hit that and not know what to do. So maybe it's something that we need to broaden our outlook on, is to not just look at the software and the apps, but also the hardware that goes along with it. So thanks.
So we now have lunch and fellowship. Please continue the conversation during lunch and the fellowship. We got an hour and 15 minutes. It's in room 5, which is a hospitality suite. At 1:15 we have 1:15 and 2:15 we have the split sessions again here and in rooms 1 and 2. And we also have a sharing session at 3:15 after those 2 sessions where we can do more of this discussion that we just did. And Brian, what you just did reminded me a little bit of a TED Talk. It brought up ideas for us to think of, and now we carry the conversation. So So thank you.